I'm going to disclose the facts as they are. I mean, whether they're dead or alive, I'm going to tell the same story because that's my job, is to get to the truth of the matter. My name is Keffe D.
For years, the internet swore Tupac was alive after eerie jail footage went viral. Millions believed it proved he faked his death, but the truth behind those clips is far darker, and it leads directly to the man now awaiting trial, whose own words may finally end the mystery. The confession that wouldn't die. The internet went into absolute meltdown when videos began circulating claiming to show Tupac Shakur alive and well, walking through a prison facility years after his alleged death in 1996. Conspiracy theorists erupted, comment sections exploded, the videos racked up millions of views as people dissected every frame, every pixel, every shadow for proof that the greatest rapper to ever hold a microphone had somehow faked his own demise. But here's the truth that nobody actually wants to hear. Those videos don't show Tupac Shakur at all. The clips circulating as evidence of Tupac being alive are actually footage of Keffe D Davis in modern jail settings, the 60-year-old former Southside Compton Crips leader who currently sits in the Clark County Detention Center in Las Vegas, awaiting trial for Tupac's murder. The grainy quality, the misleading captions, the desperate need to believe in something greater than the tragedy that actually unfolded, all of it combined to create a viral phenomenon built entirely on misidentification and wishful thinking. Some of the footage being passed around also comes from Tupac's actual 1995 incarceration at Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York, where he served approximately 9 months following his conviction for first-degree sexual abuse. That footage is real, that footage is authentic, but that footage was recorded while he was still very much alive, serving time before Suge Knight posted his $1.4 million bail in October 1995. The confusion is understandable given the absolute chaos surrounding this case. For nearly 3 decades, the murder of Tupac Shakur remained one of the most notorious unsolved crimes in American history. Conspiracy theories flourished in that vacuum of justice. Theories about Cuban safe houses, Machiavelli-inspired death-faking schemes, and witness protection programs grew so elaborate that they spawned entire documentaries, books, and academic papers. But what actually changes everything isn't new footage at all. What changes everything is the fact that Keffe D Davis was arrested on September 29, 2023, charged with first-degree murder with a deadly weapon and gang enhancement. After 27 years of silence from law enforcement, after countless dead ends and abandoned investigations, after 2 police departments pointing fingers at each other while evidence grew cold and witnesses died off, someone was finally sitting in a jail cell for the murder of Tupac Amaru Shakur. And here's where it gets fascinating. Keffe D wasn't arrested because of some brilliant piece of detective work uncovered in the 11th hour. He wasn't brought down by newly discovered forensic evidence or a witness who finally broke their silence. He was arrested primarily because he couldn't stop talking about his involvement in the murder. In interviews, documentaries, his own memoir titled Compton Street Legend, and most notably his 2019 sit-down with DJ Vlad on Vlad TV, Keffe D provided detailed accounts of the events surrounding September 7th, 1996.
I retired from the LAPD back in 2010 after spending 25 years in law enforcement. In the LAPD, I was assigned to our robbery homicide division, who handled most of the more higher profile type of homicides and robberies in Los Angeles. Before I got assigned to the Biggie Smalls investigation, I really knew very little about hip-hop.
Kading's admission that he knew little about hip-hop before the investigation underscores something crucial. He approached the case without the cultural baggage, without the mythology, without the preconceived notions that had clouded the investigation for years. He followed the evidence where it led, and it led directly to Keffe D and the Southside Compton Crips.
I'm going to disclose the facts as they are. I mean, whether they're dead or alive, I'm going to tell the same story because that's my job, is to get to the truth of the matter. My name is Keffe D.
Keffe D, the retired LAPD detective who spent years investigating both the Tupac and Biggie murders, laid the foundation for understanding what actually happened on that fateful night in Las Vegas. His work through the mid-2000s task force secured the initial confession from Keffe D in 2009 during a proffer agreement related to an unrelated drug investigation. That proffer, which Keffe D believed granted him immunity, contained the same explosive details he would later share publicly.
Orlando Anderson is absolutely, positively the murderer of Tupac Shakur. Sean Combs was associated back in New York with a high-level drug dealer named Eric Martin. He was known as Zip. Well, Zip was getting his cocaine and his PCP from a West Coast gang member who was a Crip named Keffe D. Keffe D's nephew is Orlando Anderson. He's the individual that got into a fight with Tupac Shakur the night that Tupac was shot.
The narrative Kading assembled from his investigation painted a picture of gang retaliation tied directly to events that unfolded just hours before Tupac's death. At the MGM Grand Hotel, following the Bruce Seldon versus Mike Tyson boxing match, Tupac and his entourage attacked Orlando, Baby Lane Anderson, in the casino lobby. The brutal assault, captured on hotel surveillance footage, lasted only seconds before security intervened. But those seconds set into motion a chain of events that would end with one of hip-hop's most beloved figures bleeding out on a Las Vegas street. Orlando Anderson was Keffe D's nephew, a 22-year-old member of the South Side Compton Crips, a young man who had been identified by Death Row Records associate Trevon Trey Lane as part of a group that had attacked Lane months earlier at a Lakewood Mall Foot Locker, allegedly trying to rob him of his Death Row medallion. When Lane spotted Anderson in the MGM Grand lobby, he pointed him out to Tupac and Suge Knight. What followed was street justice, recorded for posterity on grainy security cameras. After the beating, Keffe D and his crew, including Anderson, obtained a Glock pistol. They spotted Tupac in the passenger seat of Suge Knight's black BMW at a red light near Flamingo Road. Keffe D has claimed he was in the front passenger seat of a white Cadillac, and he passed the gun to the back seat where the fatal shots were fired. But here's where everything gets murky, where the official narrative meets conflicting testimony, where certainty dissolves into reasonable doubt. During the 2023 grand jury proceedings that led to Keffe D's indictment, a Southside Crips affiliate witness testified that DeAndre Big Dre Smith was actually the shooter because Anderson couldn't get a clear shot due to positioning. Suge Knight has publicly denied Anderson was the shooter, and Anderson himself, in interviews with Vibe magazine and the Los Angeles Times in 1997, claimed he was a Tupac fan and called the rapper his hero. Orlando Anderson was killed on May 29, 1998, at age 23, in an unrelated gang shootout at a Compton car wash during a dispute over drug money. He never faced charges, he never stood trial, and with his death, the primary suspect in Tupac's murder was beyond the reach of justice. The murder weapon has never been found. The white Cadillac disappeared into the Nevada desert like a ghost. The witnesses who might have provided crucial testimony are either dead, imprisoned, or protected by gang codes of silence that have held firm for decades. But through all of it, Keffe D kept talking, kept providing details, kept placing himself at the center of the most consequential crime in hip-hop history. In his Vlad TV interview, Keffe D described the sequence with chilling specificity. After the MGM brawl, he and his crew obtained the Glock from an associate named Zip Martin, who allegedly had ties to Sean Diddy Combs and Bad Boy Records. They spotted Tupac at that red light. Keffe D claimed he was in the front passenger seat, that he passed the gun to the back seat, that Tupac made an erratic move as if reaching for a weapon before the shooting started. Tupac pulled out a strap, and that's when the fireworks started, Keffe D recounted. One of my guys from the back seat grabbed the Glock and started busting back. 4 shots hit Tupac. Suge Knight was grazed in the head. 6 days later, on September 13, 1996, Tupac Amaru Shakur was pronounced dead at University Medical Center in Las Vegas. For 27 years, no one faced charges. For 27 years, the case remained officially unsolved. For 27 years, conspiracy theories flourished in the absence of accountability. Which brings us back to Keffe D, the man who wouldn't stop confessing. The defense that defies logic. Keffe D's defense strategy might be the most audacious legal maneuver in the history of hip-hop criminal cases. His attorneys are essentially arguing that all of his detailed, consistent confessions over nearly 2 decades were fabricated for entertainment purposes and financial gain. Let that sink in for a moment. A man gave detailed accounts of a murder and police proffer sessions, documentaries, interviews, and his own published memoir. He described being in the car, obtaining the gun, passing it to the shooter, watching Tupac make what he interpreted as a reaching motion before the gunfire started. And now his legal team is claiming all of it was fiction, elaborate stories concocted to avoid drug charges, sell books, and capitalize on what they call the entertainment world's JFK assassination. The irony of this defense strategy cannot be overstated. For years, investigators struggled to build a case because witnesses wouldn't talk. Gang members adhered to codes of silence that frustrated law enforcement at every turn. And then along came Keffe D, not just willing to talk, but seemingly eager to do so, providing detailed accounts to anyone who would listen: police, journalists, documentary filmmakers, podcasters, and book publishers. The prosecution's case file contains a mountain of Keffe D's own words, his proffer statements from 2008-2009, his memoir Compton Street Legend, published in 2019, his Vlad TV interview from the same year, his appearances in documentaries like Unsolved in 2018. Each account remained remarkably consistent in its core details: the MGM fight, the retaliation, the white Cadillac, the Glock, the shooting. The allegations Keffe D made in his various public statements reached beyond the immediate participants in the shooting. He claimed that Sean "Diddy" Combs had approached him offering $1 million to take care of Suge Knight and Tupac amid escalating threats. According to Keffe D's accounts, Diddy was terrified, and rightfully so. Death Row Records and its Blood Gang associates were allegedly targeting Combs, holding him responsible for the murder of Suge Knight's friend, Jake Robles, in Atlanta.
They held him responsible for the murder of one of Suge Knight's best friends in Atlanta, a guy named Jake Robles. So this conflict just continued to fuel itself. Combs saw that it wasn't going to be resolved peacefully, and he protected himself by affiliating with these Crip gang members, and they took upon themselves to then kill Tupac Shakur.
Diddy has denied any involvement, and no charges have ever been filed against him in connection with Tupac's murder. But Keffe D's allegations added fuel to a fire that had been burning for decades, connecting the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry to actual organized crime, drug trafficking, and murder-for-hire conspiracies. In March 2025, Keffe D gave his first public interview since his arrest to ABC News. His claims in that jailhouse interview represent a complete reversal of everything he'd said before. He now insists he was not in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996, claiming he was 300 miles away in Los Angeles. He says he never actually read his own memoir, Compton Street Legend, and blames his co-author for taking artistic liberties. He characterizes his years of public statements as fabrications designed to make money off a cultural obsession with unsolved celebrity murders. The prosecution isn't buying it, and neither was the grand jury that indicted him. The case against Keffe D relies heavily on his own words as the core evidence. No murder weapon has ever been recovered. No direct forensic evidence places him definitively at the scene. The white Cadillac vanished into the Las Vegas night nearly 3 decades ago. But prosecutors argue that Keffe D's repeated, detailed, consistent confessions constitute an overwhelming body of evidence, testimony against himself that he freely gave to police, media, and the public at large.
I mean, whether they're dead or alive, I'm going to tell the same story because that's my job, is to get to the truth of the matter. I would never provide information or falsely accuse somebody unless I had the evidence to support and back up the claims that were being made.
Greg Kading's assessment has been blunt. In a 2023 NPR interview, he stated, "The strength of this prosecution lies solely on the confession that Keffe D has made since 2009. Kading described Keffe D as someone who talked himself straight into prison by continuing to boast publicly about his involvement long after the original proffer agreement that he believed protected him. The defense team, led by attorneys Robert Draskovich and William Brown, has fought aggressively on multiple fronts. In December 2025, they filed a motion to suppress items seized during a 2023 nighttime search of Keffe D's home, arguing the warrant was based on a misleading portrait of their client as an active gang member and drug dealer when he had allegedly been reformed since 2008. They claim the search was unlawful and that any evidence obtained should be thrown out. Earlier motions for complete dismissal, based on the 2008-2009 proffer agreements that Keffe D believed granted him immunity, were denied. Prosecutors argue those agreements specifically protected statements made to police during the proffer sessions, not subsequent public confessions in interviews, documentaries, or books. The trial itself has been repeatedly delayed, highlighting the complexity of a case built on decades of accumulated evidence. Originally scheduled for mid-2024, it was pushed to February 9th, 2026, then further delayed to August 10th, 2026. The defense described the evidence as voluminous and overwhelming, requiring extensive review. Decades of interviews, police reports, media appearances, and investigative materials all needed to be processed. Judge Carly Kearney approved the delay, and prosecutors did not oppose it. Everyone involved seems to understand the weight of what's at stake. This isn't just a murder trial. It's the potential resolution of one of the most notorious cold cases in American criminal history. The pyramid structure Greg Kading describes explains why this case remained unsolved for so long. At the top sat the music moguls, insulated by layers of associates and gang affiliates. Information moved upward through the hierarchy, but accountability credibility dissipated at each level. When violence erupted, those at the top had plausible deniability, while those at the bottom took the physical risks and the legal exposure. In April 2025, Keffe D was convicted in an unrelated case, a jailhouse altercation that resulted in charges of battery by a prisoner and issuing challenges to fight. He was sentenced to 16 to 40 months with credit for time served. That conviction hasn't directly impacted the murder trial timeline, but it demonstrates the ongoing challenges of keeping a high-profile defendant out of trouble while awaiting trial. The man who allegedly orchestrated the murder of one of hip-hop's greatest artists now sits in a Nevada jail, his fate hanging on a legal argument that strains credibility, that decades of detailed confessions were simply entertainment, nothing more than storytelling for profit from a man who wanted the world to believe he was at the center of hip-hop's most infamous unsolved crime. The legacy that haunts them all. September 7, 1996, a date that changed hip-hop forever, a date that created conspiracy theories spanning continents, a date that, nearly 30 years later, still has the power to trend globally whenever new information or misinformation emerges. Tupac Shakur was 25 years old when those bullets tore through Suge Knight's BMW on the Las Vegas Strip. He had already survived a previous shooting at Quad Recording Studios in New York in 1994, an incident he blamed on associates of the notorious B.I.G. and Bad Boy Records. He had served time in prison. He had recorded some of the most powerful, raw, and influential music the genre had ever heard, and he had become a lightning rod for everything controversial about hip-hop in the 1990s. Tupac's criminal record included multiple arrests between 1993 and 1995, incidents involving assault, weapons charges, and confrontations with law enforcement. His 1995 conviction for first-degree sexual abuse resulted in a sentence of 1.5 to 4.5 years, though Suge Knight's bail money freed him after approximately 9 months. That release came with a price. Tupac signed with Death Row Records, aligning himself with one of the most controversial figures in music industry history. His lyrics reflected his reality. Songs like Dear Mama contained lines about hugging on my mama from a jail cell and seeing the penitentiary one day. Trapped addressed police brutality and the feeling of being caught in a system designed to criminalize black youth. Out on Bail was a defiant anthem with direct shots at judges, prosecutors, and juries. And Ambition's Azarida, written shortly after his release from Clinton Correctional Facility, opened with Out on Bail, Fresh Out of Jail, California Dreaming, turning his incarceration into a badge of resilience. The music was prophetic in ways that seem haunting now. Tupac frequently rapped about death, about being targeted, about not surviving to see old age. His artistic persona merged with his actual circumstances until the two became indistinguishable. He wasn't just playing a character, he was documenting a life lived on the edge, a life that seemed destined to end in violence. The retaliation cycle that began with Tupac's death continued 6 months later when the notorious B.I.G. was gunned down in Los Angeles. According to Kading's investigation, Suge Knight allegedly ordered the killing from jail, using an intermediary, a woman Kading calls Teresa Swan, who was one of Suge's former romantic partners, to hire the gunman Poochie. The connection between the two murders represents the bloodiest chapter of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, a conflict fueled by ego, business competition, gang affiliations, and an escalating cycle of violence that claimed two of hip-hop's brightest stars. The power dynamics Keffe D describes paint a picture of Compton in the 1990s that goes far beyond simple gang rivalries. Death Row Records and their blood affiliates had allegedly embedded themselves into the fabric of local government, creating a parallel power structure that operated alongside, and sometimes in coordination with, official institutions. This context helps explain why the investigation stalled for so long, why witnesses remained silent, and why the case went cold for nearly 3 decades. Keffe D's own assessment of the aftermath is stark. Of the 3 head dudes at the top of this pyramid of violence, Suge Knight himself and Diddy, 2 have seen their empires crumble completely. Suge Knight is serving 28 years in prison for a separate murder conviction, having run over and killed a man named Terry Carter at a Compton burger stand in 2015. Keffe D awaits trial for murder, his freedom gone, his legacy reduced to that of an informant who talked too much. Only Diddy, despite decades of allegations and the recent explosion of legal trouble surrounding him, has maintained his position at the heights of the entertainment industry, though that too appears increasingly precarious. The alleged triggerman, Orlando Anderson, died just 2 years after Tupac. Poochie, the alleged shooter in Biggie's murder, was killed in 2002, shot 10 times in the back while riding his motorcycle up Central Avenue. The cycle of violence consumed nearly everyone involved. The only ones left standing are those who sat at the top of the pyramid, separated from from the actual killings by layers of gang hierarchy and plausible deniability. For those watching the Keffe D trial unfold, the outcome could determine whether any form of justice is ever achieved for Tupac's family. The trial is now scheduled for August 10th, 2026, potentially coinciding with the 30-year anniversary of the shooting. Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother, and a former Black Panther who dedicated her post-son years to preserving his legacy, passed away in 2016. She filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Orlando Anderson that settled shortly before Anderson's own death. She never saw anyone prosecuted for her son's murder.
Typically in a cold case, when you get a case like Biggie's that's 9 years after the fact, most all of the traditional methods of investigation have been exhausted. So we knew that we were going to have to get people into a position where they were compelled to talk. We knew that we were going to have to corner them and give them options of either going to prison or cooperating and telling us what they knew.
The irony isn't lost on anyone paying attention. Keffe D wasn't cornered into talking. He wasn't given ultimatums or threatened with charges. He talked freely, repeatedly, enthusiastically for decades. He gave interviews, he wrote a book, he appeared in documentaries. He sat with DJ Vlad and laid out the entire operation in detail, seemingly believing the 2008 proffer agreement protected him from everything he would ever say publicly. It didn't. And now, the man who wouldn't stop confessing faces the prospect of spending the rest of his life in prison, not because investigators cracked the case through brilliant detective work, but because he essentially built the prosecution's case for them, one interview at a time, one confession at a time, one book chapter at a time. The footage that sparked all those conspiracy theories about Tupac being alive in prison, it's real footage, but it shows the wrong man. It shows Keffe D, the man charged with orchestrating Tupac's murder, sitting in the very jail cell where justice has finally, belatedly, caught up with him. That's what changes everything. Not evidence of Tupac surviving, not proof of elaborate death-faking schemes, not confirmation of Machiavelli-inspired resurrection theories that have populated internet forums for 3 decades. What changes everything is that after 27 years, someone is finally being held accountable. Whether Keffe D is convicted or acquitted, whether his defense strategy succeeds or fails spectacularly, the case has moved from the realm of unsolved mysteries into active prosecution. The questions that haunted hip-hop for nearly 3 decades are finally being addressed in a court of law with rules of evidence, sworn testimony, and the possibility of a definitive verdict. The cultural impact of this moment cannot be understated. An entire generation grew up believing Tupac's murder would never be solved. They watched documentaries, they read books, they debated theories in comment sections and podcasts, they analyzed lyrics for hidden messages, and studied grainy photographs for signs that their idol had somehow escaped death. Now they're watching a 60-year-old man in an orange jumpsuit argue that he made it all up for entertainment purposes. The trial begins in August 2026, and for better or worse, that's where this story will finally reach some kind of conclusion. Not in viral videos, not in conspiracy forums, not in clickbait headlines about impossible resurrections, but in a Las Vegas courtroom where the facts, whatever they may be, will finally be presented to a jury of ordinary citizens tasked with determining the truth. Tupac Shakur deserved better than what happened to him on September 7, 1996. His family deserved answers that took far too long to materialize, and the culture he helped create deserved closure that remained frustratingly out of reach for a generation. The man who allegedly orchestrated his death now sits in a jail cell, captured on footage that some have mistaken for proof of Tupac's survival. The irony is almost too perfect. The confusion between killer and victim, the desperation to believe in miracles when the reality is far more mundane and far more tragic. Whether that closure finally comes in August 2026 remains to be seen. But for the first time in 30 years, the possibility exists. For the first time in 3 decades, the wheels of justice are actually turning on behalf of Tupac Amaru Shakur. That's what changes everything. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.